Well, hello, my friends. Welcome back to another episode. I'm super happy today because I have here a returning guest, friend of mine, Estefania Ochoa. She's joining me all the way from Mexico. She's right now on a little trip down there, and she makes some time for us to talk about all things NFT, to talk about the things that she's doing with Soyo Magazine. It's kind of pretty much a follow-up conversation on what she's up to. And I'm very excited because I've been following Estefania for a while since we had that conversation, I don't know how many months ago, maybe 6 or more months ago. And all the new things that she's doing seem very exciting for me. And I think they will be also very excited for you guys to listen to. So don't go anywhere. It's going to be a great chat.
Resources, inspiring interviews, business practices, and practical advice to take your art career to the next level. Join Sergio Gomez in today's Artist Next Level and get ready to take control of your career.
Well, Estefania, ¿cómo estás?
Maravillosa, feliz, un poquito cansada de estar viajando tanto, pero we're good.
Awesome. Super happy to have you back, Estefania. You are no stranger to us here and to my community. And what a great chance to now have an opportunity to chat with you. Thank you for making space. I know today's been super busy for you. You had some meetings, and you're also down in Mexico having a great time. And I think you were hiking yesterday or something. So I know you're probably a bit tired, but thank you for making the time for me and for our friends here as well. Those who are listening to the podcast or those who are watching, this through YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or whatever our friends are at. And I really want to talk to you because, and here's the big because, right? And I don't even know where this conversation is going to go, like in which direction, because I think, the world which we live today creatively and also in many other aspects, technology is going is moving fast and is bringing a lot of new opportunities. It's bringing also a lot of new terrains to go into, and maybe some even places that we have never been before, also contemplating new ways of working, new ways of accessing information. And for artists, new ways of creating, new ways of making our creations available to people. And for collectors, new ways of collecting and new ways of connecting with artists. So there's like a lot of new in the space. And I remember since we had a chat, some time ago, and we talked about your projects, and you were doing some curatorial projects, and you were also doing some art consulting, and you had Soyo Magazine, which you were in the middle of changing and so on. And then ever since, you have gone really full-fledged, full force into NFT space as well. You've been, doing conferences and workshops and doing all kinds of really, really interesting stuff that I don't even have a title for you on what to call you, but on the NFT space, you're known as NFT Mami, NFT Mami. So that's your new kind of identity in this new world, this new reality. So I'm really super excited because I want to kind of follow up on that chat. And maybe you can take us a little bit on that journey that you've been into and what makes you excited about it, because you seem very excited about it when you talk about it, when you do your also your social media posts and when you do your videos, and also you're an NFT collector. So I would love to to hear a little bit about that. And one last thing, if that wasn't enough, we had a chance to meet in person. You made a visit to Chicago, and you DM me and said, I'm in Chicago, so you came to visit my gallery, and we had a great time, great chat. And so I feel now I know you even better. So, and we're both Ochoas, so we might be cousins at some point somewhere. So how's that for an introduction, Estefania?
That is quite the introduction. And well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me back here and thinking about me as you also delve into this space. And I'll give you like a very quick gist summary of how this year NFTs completely changed my life. So I believe like when we first started talking, because we were connected through TikTok, I was still working in the traditional art space, but it was but everything around like the world in the art space, and everyone was talking about NFTs and all this, and I was like kind of like turning a cold shoulder to it, saying like, not something else, like this is just a fad, it's not going to
Yeah.
stick, digital art isn't real, like having this like super negative idea about it, right? But it's because I didn't know, and I think that that's what happens a lot in the space, is like
Mhm.
people fear what they don't know. And because they already come with that sort of stigma about it, they don't do the research. So
Exactly.
it just kept popping up in my world. And actually, the gallery I was working with, or still working with, is BG Gallery in Santa Monica. They were onboarding artists. We were onboarding artists to NFTs. And so I was in some of those meetings, and some of my friends are reaching out to me who are doing really well, like on Clubhouse and getting Twitter following and things like that, talking about NFTs. And I was like, okay, there might be something here. Like some people I trust are genuinely interested.
Mhm.
So I did more research, and I knew that like in order even for me to teach people, if I was going to like say it or stand behind something like that, I needed to understand.
Mhm.
So I actually did a lot of research, just like Googling, watching a bunch of YouTube videos. I was very confused for a very long time. And like, yes, it's an NFT is a non-fungible token, but like, what does fungibility even mean? And like,
Mhm.
why is it a token? It's art, it's like, is it just art? Are other things NFTs? Like, where does this rabbit hole go, right? And it's a very, very deep rabbit hole. Once you start doing the research, there's so many different things you can do with NFTs, because essentially it's just technology, right?
Mhm.
So when I understood like what blockchain did and what the NFT technology on top of blockchain did, it really broadened my horizons in terms of appreciating how it could change the creator economy and artists' lives. And I'll give just a very brief example of like what really clicked for me. It was the fact that an artist could essentially get rid of the gatekeeper, the middleman. And it made total sense to me, because I don't come from like an academic art background. I come from like, I want to disrupt this space. What can we do to disrupt it? And
Mhm.
this technology really solved that. One, you could get rid of middlemen who, like, for example, an auction house, right? An
Yeah.
auction house, it's a lot of fees when you go into auction. So what if you were able to just hire a PR team, hire like your gallerists and stuff like that, and have like a clear defined budget of how to go about maybe an auction that's open to your collector base,
Mhm.
right? So you could eliminate those sort of middlemen.
Mhm.
But even beyond that, once like your NFT is out in the world or it's collected, once your collector decides to resell it, you also have the ability to get royalties for your entire life and for as long as that piece gets resold, because of the code and the technology within the NFT.
Mhm.
So that in itself is phenomenal. Also, there is just like so much potential, because it is essentially just like functions of code saying if this, then that
Mhm.
you can literally do just so much
Mhm.
with it. So I'll give some more examples. So like, for
Yeah.
example, you could somehow add like a warranty or some sort of like insurance, like maybe like what happens if my house burns down? Can I go back to the artist and be like, hey, for this small fee, would you recreate it? Because I'm actually the owner.
Mhm.
Little things like that make like real use cases and true certificates of authenticity for these art pieces. And that's another thing, right? We're able to track provenance, where it's like
Mhm.
now sometimes it's super hard to track that with like
Right.
secondary market pieces. And yeah, so there's so much that just like really opened my eyes to the potential, because also another thing about NFTs, it doesn't have to be a digital piece of work. It could be this piece of work right here, and
Mhm.
it could just have what's called a hash function that is claiming that this piece is the same piece as the NFT. And all it's doing is also interacting with like smart contracts on blockchain, saying that like, okay, it's swapping hands, and maybe that means that this digital piece is also swapping hands, but the transactions are happening on blockchain.
Mhm.
um, so I really like that for like the record keeping aspect, the creator incentives within it, and just how disruptive it is because of what you can do with code and
Mhm.
technology. So yeah, went down that rabbit hole, realized that there was huge potential there. And I think because of my research, like my social media algorithms just like changed. So I was like scrolling through TikTok and I saw this TikTok video by this young lady. Her name is, she goes by Liz Legendary or Lizendary, something like that.
Mhm.
And she was talking about this program called Kernel. She was like, hey, if you're a woman interested in learning more about blockchain, you should apply. There's an 8-week fellowship program and women can come and learn for free. And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Uh-huh.
Started looking at the application. I was like, oh, 250 people from all over the world are accepted, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, well, let's just give it a shot. There's no way
Yeah.
I'm going to get in. I applied for the scholarship, and a few days later found out. I was like, okay, you're in. Now come take part in this. And actually, the kickoff started when I started my road trip on my way to come visit you.
Okay. Okay.
They started from Ohio and then we drove all the way down to Arizona. So that's why we stopped in Chicago
Yeah.
and all these different states. And at that point, I was still very much like new and learning, very green in the space. So I think I was just excited about it, but I didn't know how to explain it yet. So the 8-week program I became pretty involved with, but I was also working full time for the startup. So I had to like kind of sneak out of work to go show up to these meetings. And eventually like my job caught up to me and they were like, hey, where are you disappearing to? Like, what's going on? And I was like, oh
Yeah.
shit. Like, and then that's where I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to quit my job and get into the space full time because this is like seriously going to change the world.
Yeah.
And then I realized like this is like one of those like once in a lifetime opportunities that maybe like I could grasp onto, especially with considering like how much the growth of Bitcoin and Ethereum has multiplied since their initial start, right? So yeah, I was looking for my place in this ecosystem and this space because I was like, hey, well, I don't know anything. So who's going to hire me? Right. So I was like, okay, well, then I'll just do more research, figure out how to get involved, maybe join a few groups and see if I could just learn. And then from there, maybe I'll be qualified for something. Right. One thing led to another. And I was like, just in a position of like, I just needed like a break from like what I was doing and also kind of realign myself with my true purpose because I felt like at the time I was just kind of lost. And art has always called me, even finance has always called me, and teaching financial literacy has been something that I've also been passionate about, just because I myself come from like immigrant parents and I'm first generation American, and financial literacy isn't something that is necessarily taught early on. But then that's also kind of one of the reasons I got into art. So I was like, well, there's a lot of money being passed around in this space. Like I want to know like why the 1% is into this, right? And so finance, art, created actually NFTs, which were like the perfect like sort of crossroad of like what NFTs are. So I was like, holy shit, yeah, this is what I have to do. Anyway, one thing led to another. I actually took like a month. I was on Twitter, found out about this other program, which was this residency saying like, hey, we want to help creators come and find time to focus on something, right? And so I was like, I really need to figure out what I'm going to do with Soyo. And I need to figure out how I'm going to either implement like a better art consulting through that, if we're still going to be a magazine, and what's going to happen, because I was like, I'm paying for this domain to live, and I don't really have time for all this content sometimes, and also I don't want to be the only owner, and I don't want to be like a boss to people. So I need to figure out how to like make this work. So I applied for this residency actually in Texas, and it was to live on a 28-acre ranch with 3 other strangers for a month, all expenses paid. I just had to get myself there and back.
And by the way, I remember your Instagram story. I'm going. I think you had something.
Yeah, and it it was crazy and it was so random. And I think I had like, it was just starting to date my boyfriend too. And so he was like visiting me for that period. And I was like, hey, I think I'm actually leaving for a month because I had applied to this program. And I got in. I
Yeah.
was a part of the first cohort to live with 3 other strangers who are now dear friends and great confidants in my life.
Yeah.
And it was truly life changing. Like just being there, being around 3 other people who were also creating and just as passionate about their endeavors, I think really created like a space of manifestation for all of us.
Mhm.
So it was almost like everything we wanted to do, we just kind of did.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and we had each other to like sort of bounce ideas off of, things like that, right?
Mhm.
And then some of us were more educated on blockchain than others. So there was that sort of like ability to exchange knowledge,
Mhm.
which was really great. And my project focus there was creating like a community of communities in a way, but it was also around like NFTs and figuring out how to do that.
Mhm.
And through actually the Kernel program, which is that fellowship program that I had applied for initially, a group of us sort of started ideating the idea of a non-fungible magazine, like an NFT magazine.
Mhm.
And it was just sort of an idea. We were all just sort of like not new to the space, but new to like, how can we figure out how can we incorporate media into this new space, this decentralized space? Because when you think about media, it is very much centralized, right? It
Right.
comes from
Right.
an editor, and then you have
Mhm.
your contributors, you have people
Right.
saying yes and no, what goes into that, right?
Right. Right.
So we were trying to figure out like a balance between that.
Mhm.
And 8 weeks just wasn't long enough for us to do that.
Mhm.
So, and also everyone's busy, has jobs, so much going on. So the project kind of fizzled, but I really wanted to figure out like what that meant and
Mhm.
how we could take that to the next level. And also with like my zine background and experience in launching a magazine back in 2017, I like really wanted to figure out how to bring those two things together.
Mhm.
So one thing led to another, just through like mentorship from like John Hillis, who is one of the founders of Creator Cabins, which is that residency program I did for a month.
Mhm.
It was really helpful talking to people like Rafa and Zach, who are also co-founders of the DAO. And if people need to know what a DAO is, you can visit Soyo Mag. I break it down in there a little bit. So there's going to be a lot of terms I feel like that probably need to get broken down eventually. So I'd be happy to provide you with those definitions in the future if needed. But basically, yeah, one thing led to another. Talking to those people, talking to the initial people that I met with
Mhm.
to like the core team that was like the founding members from Kernel, to here, talking to
Yeah.
them, I like ideating, bouncing ideas, figuring out how we can make this more elaborate, right? And we're still working on it. I mean, like
Mhm.
I feel like this is a journey
Right.
because
Right.
it's everything's so new. So yeah, basically the idea of non-fungible zine kind of came from that, and I figured out a general business sort of model
Mhm.
that we're still tweaking. But from there, I was able to present it to like to some of the other founders of the DAO,
Mhm.
and it was just really great to see the positive response, because it just went to show that there was a need for this.
Right.
I also interviewed a lot of people to see if they would be interested in something like
Mhm.
that, and there is a lot of interest in something like that. Um, and I actually presented it to another DAO, which is like sort of like a VC DAO kind of for NFT projects,
Okay.
and I got a grant.
Oh, very
So
good.
yeah, and
Exciting.
so we've yet to use the funds, but that's what we plan to use to like sort of pay for like gas fees, things like that, once we kick off our smart contract. Um, so yeah, non-fungible zine is essentially the Web3, the new pivot into this new internet, the decentralized internet model of what Soyo Magazine is. And it's also, I would say, like the solution to like everything I wanted for Soyo Magazine that I couldn't do on my own, which
Right,
is
right.
like create an organization of other people who might be like-minded or not even like-minded
Yeah.
to come contribute and have input. And we can all collectively come together to create content and programming to teach people about art, NFTs, Web3 culture, things of that sort. So there's a lot of really fun mechanics that we're also going to be implementing that are going to allow for any holder of the of the non-fungible zine tokens
Mm-hmm.
to be able to play with. So implementing some sort of like game theory, like what happens if you either stake an NFT, burn it, hold it, things
Mm-hmm.
like that. Which I also think is really important for anyone creating NFTs, is ensuring that you give your collectors like long-term value versus like just that one thing, especially with something as new as an NFT with so many skeptical collectors in the
Mm-hmm.
marketplace. It's really important that we're educating people about it. And if you're going about it too, you're being intentional about what you're minting onto the blockchain, because one of the things to consider is that it's going to live on forever on that blockchain. It's going to live
Right.
there for as long as that blockchain exists. And that to me, I think is really important because we're kind of a sum of like of all of it, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also very network based, so we have to be super aware of like how we're interacting with that network. And yeah, so I'm kind of like going on a tangent here, but
No, that's good. And I haven't interrupted you because it's been so fun to see the progression from when we left off last conversations. It's almost feels like a little catch up where like this is all I've been doing all this time, and it is really great because I see from what I know from you, like your various passions and interests kind of coming together into this new green space. Your finance as you mentioned, interest on that, and your expertise on that level, and then the art and the community aspect and entrepreneurial practices. So it all kind of seems to, just looking at you, you can talk about this forever, right? Because, and that's, I think, shows that your excitement for it. And something that I have found in this space as I started kind of also getting into this and talking to people and interviewing is there's a lot of green. This is a green space still. It's like we just landed in the moon kind of thing, even though it has been around for a while, but it's still kind of as a being more accessible to larger audiences and being more talked about quite recently. And as more people come into the space, it's still green. And even people who have been there for a while, they say, we're all still learning, right? I was listening to, I can't remember who this was, a couple of days ago on Twitter. It's like, I've been here for a long time, been very successful, but I still feel that I don't consider myself an expert, because we are still, much is changing and much is growing, and so many new people coming with brand new ideas. And so that's kind of what's finding fascinating. And I think, I was at one point kind of like in the same place as you were, like, oh, it's just a JPEG, who's going to get a JPEG, all these kind of like quick initial notions, because we hear from secondhand, third hand,
right.
and the things that make the headlines. But the things that make the headlines, they're they're headlines because that's what they're made for. That's a business in itself. But when you go dive deep into it, and then you start finding the actual people who are in, and people like you and other many creatives who are in it, doing really amazing things, and it's been really fascinating. I've been also meeting a lot of artists who are also doing things with through the NFT space in order to help people, and to help communities, and to
Yeah.
have also a social, great social impact, through what they're doing. So there's all kinds of crazy, really interesting, things happening in this world of the NFT. And I think for anyone who's right now maybe listening to this conversation and hearing you talking about it, looking at your enthusiasm, and hopefully mine too, as I get more into it, they want to start to learn more about it versus just putting a check mark. Well, it's just this or it's
Yeah.
just that. But I think there's much more to it if we
I
take the time.
will also say that So like you said, this like the NFT technology has technically been around since 2018. That's when the ERC 721 standard was created,
Mm-hmm.
which is the Ethereum request for comment standard that actually created the technicality that is the non-fungible token. And it's an evolution of what the ERC 20 is, which are what was happening back in those days, which are like the ICOs, those like crypto coins that were being released. So those were fungible tokens, right? And then the ERC 721 are the non-fungible tokens. And the biggest difference between that is that a fungible token is just transactable, interchangeable. It could be like a dollar bill, like a dollar bill is like any other dollar bill, right? But this piece of art, it's not like the Mona Lisa, for example. They're not interchangeable. So that makes that there's no fungibility there, therefore non-fungible. Also, fun fact, I do have an ERC 721 token on my because I am NFT mommy now these days. And I am bullish on NFTs.
Now, something that I also wanted to ask you, because you also, as you started participating in the space, you also became a collector of NFTs.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first piece that you purchased? Not necessarily what it was, but like, which piece it was, but like what it was for you to buy, your first NFT art.
Yeah. So actually with the prior statement, what I was going to mention is that so I want to say if like any artists out there listening and watching, like the only reason that NFTs have gotten the hype that they've gotten to this day is because of creators. It's because of artists. It's because of the culture coming into the space. So and just like everything else, like things don't make waves unless there's like culture behind it. There's like there's disruptors, right? So any artist out there needs to come into this space because you guys are the ones creating the culture. So yeah. And hence what attracted me is like, I'm also a collector of physical art and now digital art. And actually the first project I discovered was the Bored Ape Yacht Club. I didn't buy it because I couldn't afford it. But Bored Ape Yacht Club, I discovered pretty early on. I was like, oh, wow, all these these apes are like really getting along. And like, there seems to be a community here. And I was like, I want to be a part of a community. The pandemic was like really forcing us to make online connections. But I was like, but I want like a crew of people who like gets it, and I felt like that was the Bored Ape Yacht Club. But because I was like priced out, I think it was like back in March, and it wasn't even that high. Honestly, like I buy NFTs for that much now. I wish I would have done it. But I was looking for other projects that were similar. And then there was this like project that came to my radar called Panda Golf Squad, I think. And I actually ended up buying a few. And it turns out that it was actually a rug. And if you don't know what a rug is, in the NFT space, it's when someone tries to sell you something and it gives you like unicorns and butterflies and roses. It sounds great, but then they disappear and they don't follow through with what they promised. So the project ended up getting rugged. Like I still have those tokens. But the Discord got deleted, their like website got taken down.
Everybody
it just disappeared. I think they only made like 40 Ethereum, but that's still a lot of money. And they just disappeared, which is pretty sad because there's actually a greater opportunity to stay alive and nurture your community and make more money, right? So it's really unfortunate that they did that. But it taught me a lesson. It just taught me to do more research. It taught me to like be cautious of anonymous individuals on the internet as well, because everyone can tell you there's someone, but if they're not, or they're not going to follow through on this idea, then hey, like you need to be careful because it is a trustless environment. But I do believe that there are aspects of it that still need to incorporate some form of trust, especially if there's funds on the line, right? Like I went into this space like with some money, knowing I was like, I could lose it tomorrow and I don't care. This is just education right now. And I think that's how most people should start, is like start small enough to learn and be ready to lose it all. But I also was fortunate enough to like sell for my first NFT and like buy into other things, and also doing a little bit of research about DeFi because of my experience at the residency. So I was able to like stake some funds, and then also flip some NFTs after buying some more. Like I got into like the World of Women project, and I sold a couple of those NFTs, and that's when I was like, okay, I need to quit my job. And so actually, I that day I decided to quit my job, I got a text from someone that
So
like
you did.
recommended. Yeah, I did quit my job,
Wow,
but
that
I
is
got
awesome.
another job.
That is super cool. That's exciting.
Yeah, but this one's in like the Web3 space. So
Okay.
it was more aligned with like what I'm good at. And
Yeah, yeah, and where in the direction that you are actually going to. So
exactly.
yeah.
So Panda Golf Squad, complete rug.
Still there in the list. But that happens everywhere. Things like that happen. Can happen everywhere, and one has to be cautious about those things as well. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's everywhere. There's people of all kinds. There are people of all
Yeah,
kinds.
totally.
So, Stephanie, kind of last question. I know we could talk about this for a long time, but I know you probably want to continue enjoying your visit to Mexico. And I want to ask you this. So, as we go into 2022, right? We are kind of starting a brand new year, and it's kind of exciting too. What makes you excited, to be jumping into 2022 as we talk about these things? The Soyo magazine or the NFT space. Probably that's a big question, probably with a lot of answers. But like, what's kind of what top of the mind that really feels you excited as you walk into the new year?
Yeah. So there's three things I'm really excited for.
Excellent.
The number one thing is that we're going to be releasing our Genesis token for non-fungible zine. So
Awesome.
stay on the lookout for that. And this Genesis token is going to be like a founder's token, and it's going to give you very special privileges within our community.
Cool.
Another thing is, well, I'm going to be traveling a lot. So I'm really excited to be traveling to all these conferences coming up. I work for a development platform called Reach. So if there are any Web2 developers, any internet developers that know JavaScript, reach out to me. I can
Lurking.
help you get
Okay.
into blockchain.
Nice.
And the third thing is I'm thinking about moving to Mexico next year towards the end.
Oh
So
wow, that's amazing. Or actually this year, by the time this episode goes live for
yeah,
2022, begin of 2022. That's exciting. Well, we live in a world now that everything is interconnected. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, as long as you have internet, that's pretty much it. You
exactly.
know, in order to conduct our business, to the things that we need to do in the world today, and we can travel. Hopefully, the pandemic starts to let us do more of that more soon, and there are no limitations anymore on where we are at, and we can actually be in different places, through different times of the year, which also it's great. So, well, Estefania, I want to say congratulations on everything that you're doing. I will continue to follow everything that you do because I find it to be very exciting, and it makes me so happy to see you excited and to see you shining, in your best as as you continue in this journey. Have to now go visit you somewhere. Where next time we go somewhere, I'll see where you're at.
Yeah,
And
let's find each other somewhere
maybe
new.
in Mexico. Yeah, I gotta go. I gotta go back to Mexico and connect there once you move. So it will be really fun. Thanks for visiting us here, and thank you for being a good friend to my community as well. So probably your friends will want to know, where can they find you on social media? Where can they follow you, and also on the NFT space?
Yeah. So for NFTs, if you're looking to get into that space, I recommend getting to understand Discord, which is an application that's constantly used by gamers, but also now where NFT communities are being harbored. If you want to know what Discords I'm in, you can find me on Twitter, which is also a very heavily used social media platform for the NFT folk. I am NFT Mami. So that's like NFT, like non-fungible token, and Mami, MAMI. And then you can also reach out to me on Instagram. I do post some stuff about NFTs there, but that's more of a personal page, and that is Thug Life, and that's THUGLIF3. I'm always happy to teach people about NFTs. My goal is to onboard 1 million creators to NFTs. So let's make it happen.
Well, I think you onboarded me already. So in 2022, I'm joining in. So count me in.
Heck yeah, that's so great. Let me know if you need help. I'd be happy to like take you through, show you some of the platforms available, because there's a lot,
Yeah,
a lot to learn.
Super, a lot to learn, but it's very excited to learn. And I found that the NFT community is very open to to that, to offer advice and offer help, and I find it to be really, really exciting. So now I'm hooked.
That's awesome.
And I think that's what a lot of people will experience when they start getting into it, with all seriousness. So thank you, Estefania, for your time.
Thank you.
I'm super happy to share this with my community, and for everyone who's listening. If you're listening to the podcast, if you're watching this through our social media, please do us a big favor. Estefania and I will be really, really happy. And if we see that you click on that little share button, it only takes 1 second for you to click share. There might be somebody else right now kind of thinking about the NFT. What's all this? Is it for me? Is it not for me? I don't quite get it. Hopefully this conversation, looking at the enthusiasm, of the chat, we'll get some more friends excited, because we need more, more people, positive people to come in, and as Estefania said, right, to make the culture in this new green space. So it's up to us to what we make out of it, right? So go and check it out. Please share it with all your friends. Follow us on social media. Make sure you find NFT Mami there on Twitter, and connect and follow everything that Estefania is doing. So, and we're looking forward to see more of Soyo Mag very soon.
Check out our website at www.theartistnextlevel.com, where you will find our podcast library, learn about our upcoming webinars, find resources relevant to your career, and much more. Thanks for listening to today's podcast, and we'll see you at the next level.